And hello, Steeler Nation, and welcome to your SteelerNation.com podcast, sponsored by Total Sports Enterprises. I'm your host, G.Stryker, and with me is one of our newest members of Steeler Nation. I'm happy to introduce longtime friend of the podcast, Colton Gesser. Colton, how you doing, my friend?
What is up? How are you? Glad you had a nice Father's Day. I'm glad to be part of Steeler Nation. It looks like we all had a little solid week here.
It's a win-win for everybody all the way around. And it's so nice because you probably put in the second most hours of Steeler Nation with me on the draft this year. You probably were up there around 16, 17 hours with me on the draft of the 20 I was on. So it's nice to have you here too, just to help out and do everything else. So welcome to the team, man.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. Hey, first item on the agenda that I'd like to talk about tonight, training camp's going to be July 21st. But we just don't know yet where it's going to be. Colton, what do you think?
Yeah, I was reading stuff that Brooke Pryor had tweeted out from Mike Tomlin's comments after minicamp, and the fact that he doesn't know is kind of like, all right, let's get things rolling here because it's going to come up sooner than we think. So,
right.
I would love to see the old traditional way come back. Last year, clearly because of COVID, doesn't happen. I'm hoping this year, since stuff's starting to open back up a little bit, vaccination rates are higher. The Steelers are one of the highest vaccinated teams. Saw Devin Bush post that on his Instagram, I think last week or the beginning of this week kind of thing.
Yes. Yeah.
He posted that he's vaccinated. So they're one of the highest teams, I think the highest in football. So I'd love to see them at Latrobe. Hopefully they can figure this out soon.
Yeah, fingers crossed, because we are now under a month. It's the 23rd now, and we've got the 21st for the first day training camp for us and the Dallas Cowboys, since we're going to be facing off in the first preseason game of the year for the Hall of Fame game in Canton. So have we heard yet whether the Canton game's at 100% capacity yet or not?
I don't think it is.
Okay.
I don't think it is.
I have not heard. I'm telling you, it's just one of the things I forgot to research right before I started the show. But now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I'm not sure yet.
see what we got here.
Yeah, we'll have to find out. But first thing I want to talk about with training camp, we got some training camp battles coming up, and we're getting a lot of talk now about cornerback. And we know that the biggest aspect with cornerback was Steven Nelson leaving, Mike Hilton leaving, Sutton being retained. Is he going to be slot corner? Is he going to be outside corner? Looks like he's going to be the outside corner. Yep. And now there's a lot of talk in free agency about the draft pick from Maryland last year, Antoine Brooks, possibly having the inside track to that slot position this year. What do you think about that?
Yeah, he's looked really, really good mini camp. A lot of good reps out of him. And I thought that was one of their steal picks last year. Again, they had a lot of steals last year from our guy Kevin all the way. The list is there. They had a fantastic draft last season.
I thought Brooks. Everybody was rostered. Of course, they had a great. Everybody was on the roster at one point or at another, and at the end of the season, everybody was on the roster.
Absolutely, they always draft well. I mean, geez Louise, but I was expecting a little bit more out of Brooks last season. Little nicks and bruises there in camp, and never really got the full reps going. Never got in the swing of things. He looks to be the part this mini camp. I can't wait to see him with the full training camp here. And see what happens in preseason. But so far, he looks great. I was looking at all of his tape, all the comments that are coming out of camp, and they love him. And he has that it factor that I saw at Maryland. Watch some of his tape, because every single time they draft someone's like, all right, let's watch these tapes, see what he looks like. And he's got that Mike Hilton kind of speed on the edge. Could be that guy. So we'll see. I'm excited.
He's a thumper. And if you watch him at University of Maryland, I mean, the guy just slammed into people and hit them like Ryan Clark hard. I mean, this guy was making visible auditory tackles. I mean, when this guy made tackles, you heard that crack in the stadium. And that's the biggest thing I'm excited to see. And he had a ton of TFLs playing in that middle linebacker, money backer / strong safety position for the Terps. Also, I'm really excited about his athleticism. He grew up right here, 13 miles from the Terps, as a quarterback. He is an athletic man. He understands the game. He plays the game hard. He knows where the plays are going from having all that experience as a quarterback running a team. So to me, I can't wait to see a guy like that kind of turn it in his second year and start making plays as the quarterback, possibly on the defensive side.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of our young draft picks, knock on wood, as of late, these younger secondary players making strides. as they've gotten more comfortable back there. Figure Terrell Edmonds, everyone called for the first 2 years. Oh my gosh, this guy's got to go. He's awful back there.
Right.
And last season and the year before that, you saw huge strides, especially last season. I was kind of surprised. We kind of talked about it when they didn't pick up his 5th-year option. I was kind of surprised they didn't. But, I guess the price tag where he's at, I guess, was kind of one of those things. Same thing with Bud. It was one of those things. See what the price tag is for him. Clearly, Minka is well deserving of that 5th-year option. But yeah, going back to Brooks, I'm excited watching that tape out of Maryland. Like you said, he's a thumper, and he might bring that it factor to the defense. There's a lot of questions about the secondary with Hilton leaving. There's a lot of questions. So we'll see.
Yeah.
They got some holes they got to fix, and they got some guys that are stepping up. Desir looks really good as well.
Yeah.
So he's having a solid camp. So I'm excited. It's one of those things. The secondary, that's a big question mark, but there's a lot of promise in the back end.
That there is. And shout out here to Steeler Nation. We're all over here on the chat. A lot of you guys chiming in on the YouTube channel. Robert C., Kenneth Beamer, Gabe Gotti. Hey, cheers to you, Steeler Nation. Welcome back. And Zachary Moore also giving a meow to my cat, Lexi. Thank you very much over there on the Twitter side. Love you guys. Love the input. You got any questions? Obviously, we'll be fielding questions as it is. Another camp battle coming up. I want to lead to talking about punter, man. It's going to be Percy Harvin III against Jordan Berry. How do you see that one? Who's going to win that one, Colton, in your opinion?
I saw you on the last show talking about it. It's one of those things. They've been trying to get rid of Barry for the longest time. And it's like, oh crap, here he is. He's back in camp again, and he's back kicking.
Yep.
I think Harvin's got a really good shot at this. You draft him for a reason. If you could have waited till after the draft, maybe he doesn't get drafted. No, you drafted him, which tells you a lot what they think about him. I think he's got a legit shot. Again, Jordan Berry was not bad for them last season. So I think that also comes into play here. But you got to see what this kid can do. And the fact that he has a little tinkle there in his arm where he can make some plays in the special teams. So I think he's got an advantage here. He's drafted. You're not going to hold 2 punters on the roster. It's not going to happen. I think he's got a fair shot at winning this battle.
Especially now, it's going to come down to how well is he going to be able to hold the ball, and how well is he be able to do that X factor if Danny Smith wants him to go ahead and do some fakes on 4th down, whether with his arm or possibly with that huge body slamming through the line with 1 yard to go with a lot smaller players on the field, since defensive linemen rarely play on punt teams. So that'll be an interesting factor as well to see what happens in that respect.
Absolutely. I don't disagree with you on that.
And here's one that a camp battle I want to bring up. And it's one we haven't talked about before, but I've been putting some thought into it. And more than I'm starting to think about it, the more it's starting to make a little bit of sense. And possibly that 2nd round pick and Pat Freiermuth.
I knew where you're going with this one.
At tight end, man. I'm starting to think like we might actually have a camp battle between him and Eric Ebron to be possibly the number 1 tight end. So that's what I'm starting to think about. I'm thinking there might be a chance, since Pat's seems to be a more versatile option. He's definitely has better hands. He doesn't drop the ball as much, having never having a drop in college in the red zone, and also being a better blocker. So what do you think I'm just crazy right now, Colton, or is Eric Ebron just a lock-it starter?
No, I don't think you're crazy at all. And you called it on draft night. You called that pick, and I'm still going to tip my cap to you for that one.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I've seen some stuff on Twitter about it lately, and I kind of knew as soon as you said, a little surprising one. I already knew you were going with. I'm not surprised at all. I think he's really, really good. Again, the blocking game is huge. Ebron doesn't have it at all.
Yeah, no. And I think it's going to be even more glaring now that we don't have Vance McDonald there to be that solid blocker in the running downs that we had before. But even he had a down year last year, but it seems like the whole line had a down year last year. So I'm not going to throw everything in Vance's lap.
No, absolutely not. But yeah, Ebron, it's not like Ebron took the reins like, all right, this is clearly my job last year. No, Ebron had plenty of drops to go around, big drops. And again, the blocking game's not there. So that's also like a little minus mark on Ebron. So And this kid can do it all. So
Yeah.
you watch the tape, this kid can do it all. And Ben likes him. Ebron's talking very highly of him, which Ebron should watch his back, because I think this kid's going to make a real mark in camp. I think he's going to have a really, really big season for Pittsburgh.
And inside linebacker, we know Devin Bush is going to be back. He's going to be starting on that side. We've got Spillane and Vince coming back too. It seemed like the Steelers were kind of ready to move on from Vince Williams when they decided to cut him for salary cap purposes, saving some big chunk of change. But then ultimately ended up bringing him back. So to me, obviously it seems like Spillane is the more athletic player, but Vince Williams has just shown he can make plays every time he's on the field as well. So I think it's at least smart for the Steelers to keep 3 solid starter caliber inside linebackers with all the injury issues they've been having here lately.
Yeah, they don't need it this year with middle linebacker. They got too many bumps and bruises last season. That's a position that needs to stay healthy for them this year. And I'm praying it does, because that was bad last year. The injuries on the middle linebacker spot was glaring. And you saw in that playoff game, Spillane was really, really rusty in that game. I'm really glad he's back. I love me some Spillane train.
Me too.
And I just like that there's a mix of guys there. Devin Bush can do it all.
Yep.
Spillane's really good in the run game. Kind of reminds me of a Blake Martinez from the Giants, former Packer.
Yeah.
And Vince, you know what Vince brings to the table. So I'm excited for this year. I'm excited for the battles and inside. You got 3 quality guys. They're all starter caliber guys. Seriously.
Yeah. And thanks to Robert too over on YouTube. He was looking around as well. He said he can't find any announcement on the Hall of Fame being full capacity yet, which is why we were correct in not knowing. Because I don't think we know yet. Yeah, but we've got a little bit of time. Hopefully the Hall of Fame will be making an announcement soon, and hopefully it will be at capacity. I don't know if anyone knows whether the professional games in Cleveland or in Ohio are at capacity. But for baseball, you can kind of never tell because nobody really shows up for baseball games anymore. The last position I want to talk about is one of the most interesting. It was the 3rd round draft pick that we had in Kendrick Green. And, I think he probably has the most upside at this position, since the 2 people behind him in both Hausner and in BJ Finney, neither of them are starters in the league. Both of them are spot starters. And to me, I don't really want to rely with the center position going from a perennial all-pro to a spot starter when we have the ability to upgrade through the draft and hopefully get this guy on the field and maybe make some mistakes early, but, get it out of the way. If he's the best guy for the job, we need him on the field.
No, again, like you said, those guys are spot guys. Those are the guys that if, God forbid, something happens, they can slide in there. And from what you're hearing out of camp, he looks good so far, Green.
Yeah.
He looks really comfortable there. So I wouldn't be surprised. They're probably going to start him there. I wouldn't be surprised unless some of these guys look really, really good and blow him out of the water. It's like, all right, we got to go here.
Yeah.
I see him starting, like you said, let him get his issues out of the way right away, and let him get his rookie bumps out of the way. Figure it's not a quarterback, and he's got some help with DeCastro there at guard to help him figure out some things, point things out where he's going to start seeing it like Pouncey was seeing it.
Yeah.
So I think he'll be just fine. I think you got to go Green. I think my personal opinion on it.
And talking about Kendrick Green, we got to talk about his contract a little bit. Obviously, what's the holdup? It's an interesting situation. He hasn't signed yet. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, you always see there's always a guy or two where it's like, all right, you got to get every nickel and dime in your contract kind of thing. I get it, because he also might know that he might be starting here right away kind of deal. And he's like, all right, I'm trying to get every single dollar I can here. I'm not a guy sitting back on the bench here where it's like, all right, no, he's trying to get every dime possible, but they'll figure it out. These always seem to figure their way out. Figure Roquan Smith was a big one with the Bears 3 years ago when he was drafted, where that was like a month before the season I felt like it started. He figured out his deal finally.
Yeah.
It's going to get, time has to pass. I don't know what takes so long with these deals, but I think there's nothing to like, gosh, what's going to go on here? I think there's nothing to freak out about.
Well, the interesting thing with my research so far is looking at the 3rd round draft picks across the entire league. only 13 players out of the 42 players drafted thus far have signed contracts. So what that means is the slotting for your salary really hasn't been lined up yet, with so many players not yet signing yet in that third round. Everybody else slotting the first round, second round, and from past the third round, it seems like was pretty easy. Steelers signed just about everybody snap, snap, snap really, really quickly at the beginning of the month. But it seems like this third round, in the past, there's been players signing earlier and then ending up taking lesser value than they would have had they waited a little bit and gotten a couple like 10, 20,000, 30,000 extra in their contract, because they're still slotted. He's not going to make first round draft pick money, second round draft pick money. He's still slotted into his third round, but it's making sure that he and his agent are making sure that they're getting the maximum amount for his slot. And that's all they're waiting on right now, it seems. So once some of these third rounders start getting drafted here in the next couple days, you'll see Kendrick Green start to join in and hit that slotting as well. So we're just keeping our fingers crossed till he joins the team. And you were talking also about, because I'm happy with no matter who's going to be playing center here, because I really like both guards. Dotson is going to be a monster. He's flat out, like, I love him. I loved him last year. Loved him when I interviewed him. Loved his family. Huge Steeler fans. Awesome guy. And I love rooting for the guy. But DeCastro now is a question mark, because why would the Steelers think of bringing in Trey Turner? I mean, this is a guy that is also a perennial Pro Bowler. 5 of his 8 years, he was in the Pro Bowl. But he only plays right guard. So is there something up with David DeCastro?
Yeah, I think it was, again, seeing stuff from last season with his comments, like he wasn't all in on it. He was banged up last season, which also doesn't help. A pandemic season, that doesn't help. No fans, no juice behind the season kind of deal. Yeah, there were some question marks on his comments. I don't like seeing, halfway in the door, which way you going here. You got to be all in, I feel like, as a professional football player. You can't have 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Right. And seeing some of his comments where, makes you scratch your head like, oh boy, here, like, what we have here at guard. This is one of the best guards in football.
Yeah.
And having him questioning, if he's in it or not. Steelers are kind of planning here. Possibly just making sure. And it's also a nice backup piece. Where you have a guy that's really good in Turner, but he hasn't been on the field either. He hasn't played a full season, I think, in 2 years.
Yeah.
Since his last full season. So that also comes into play where it's a really, really good player. And if you can get him at the right price, why the heck not bring him in? But yeah, I don't like saying that with DeCastro.
And since you're saying that also, DeCastro didn't play a full season last year as well. Nope. He only played in 13 games, though I think he was given a game off too when he was technically healthy last game of the season. So I'm not going to count that one against him. So probably 2 of those 3 games he was missed due to injury. But I wouldn't say he's a perennially injured player. He's usually
absolutely not.
He's got 1 season with 14. It looks like 2 seasons with 15 and 1, 2, 3, 4 seasons with 16. So I'm not calling him an injury prone player and at all in the least. So hopefully he'll be back here soon as well. A little bit of news too that I just wanted to touch on before. I guess we got to talk about Kenneth is talking about it right now on the chat here on YouTube. So TJ Watt's new deal. What do you think he's worth money wise?
Again, family. It's one of my favorite things ever. Family Guy. Oh my gosh, can't speak tonight. Blank check, sir. Whatever number you want to put on it. It's literally what it is. Give him a blank check. Whatever the number is, you give it to him. He's up there. He's literally more than Myles Garrett, probably another 1 or 2 million more, because Garrett's one of the best in the league. Also, he's there. Yeah. He's. There's no way he's getting any less than Garrett, Bosa, any of those guys. He's one of the best rushers, if not the best rusher in football. And I'm so glad we took him over Taco Charlton. Thank you, Dallas. He's been an absolute monster. He's getting the max. He knows he is. Pittsburgh knows they're not going to botch this one. Yeah. That's their guy. They're going to take care of their guys. He's going to get that max. You know what he's getting.
And we got Coolie Man over there, Mr. Robert on YouTube, telling us he did some research where the Reds announced they were going back to full capacity on June 2nd. I think he meant July 2nd, but Ohio State is also expecting to be at full capacity this season. That bears well, hopefully, here for our capacity for the Canton game. So there just hasn't been an official announcement yet on how many players are going to be there. Yeah, I didn't even know, too, for hockey, if the Columbus Blue Jackets or if the Cleveland Cavaliers were playing at full capacity back when they were playing. But thank you so much, Steeler Nation, for doing some research here for us on the fly. We've got a team. That's why Steeler Nation podcast is the best podcast you can listen to, Steeler Nation. We get the information immediately as it comes in. Thanks to all of Steeler Nation. Yeah, for me, I'm the same way with you. It's back up the truck for TJ Watt. And I'd be happy if we could find a way to sign him for 25, because he's starting to look like he might be a 30 mil player. And, as football fans, we're used to seeing 30 mil players being quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Not anymore, man. Like, you get your elite pass defenders and rush defenders. They're going to start hitting that kind of money. And this might be one of the years where they back up the Brinks truck. Might even get a little bit more cap space, actually, from this initial year, because I think he's slotted to count right around 10 or 11 mil against the cap. I think I have that window open on what he is currently on the cap.
What did Bud get? Bud's 18.5, correct? Is that what he is?
Yeah, he's right around 18, yes.
Yeah, so TJ's definitely around 26 million, 25,
easily.
26.
I think any amount that we get underneath of 30 is a freaking steal.
It's one of those things you're going to compare to the rest of the top guys, like I just mentioned, Garrett, Bosa, the list goes on with those guys. And you're like, TJ, we're going to put you right there with those guys. I'm going to give you, $1 million more. But I also don't want to handicap the team here. You're not a quarterback. But again, there's no worries. They're going to take care of their guy. There's no way the Steelers let TJ Watt walk. You saw it with Antonio Brown those years back when Mike Wallace was the show and go guy here in Pittsburgh. And the Steelers knew who their number one receiver was going to be in Antonio Brown. They made that tough decision with Wallace. Yeah, they brought in Antonio. They're smart with their decisions. I trust this organization all the way. Colbert, that's my guy. I just trust the Rooneys. This is my team for a reason. They know what they're doing with their players. They're going to pay him. It's one of those things like, it's not like going in next season, oh boy, what are they going to do with TJ? They're going to tag him. Please don't play these games here. They're not. They're going to get a deal done.
Yeah. And Robert shooting back to us too. He was definitely on point. June 2nd was the actual date. It was an older story, and that's when the Reds went to full capacity. So they're at full capacity for baseball over there in Cincy on the left side of the state. So that's a good sign for having full capacity moving on. Also in the news, I wanted to touch base on this, and congratulations for being in the day and age where an NFL player can finally come out and say that they are gay and they're happy about it, with Carl Nassib, former Penn State alum, now current Raider, coming out and being a great player in his own right, being the first public gay player in the NFL. I mean, I think it's nice progress for the NFL, and we'll just have to see how the rest of the league kind of reacts to it. But do you have any initial thoughts on this, Colton?
Yeah, I liked his whole video that he made. It's not that he wants all the praise and stuff. He just wants to be a public figure, and that's huge. It's huge for him to actually have the confidence to go out and say that he is. He's been in the league for a few years now, I think 3 or 4 years, former Brown, now with the Raiders. So it's good for football, and seeing the support from his teammates, seen a few teammates in there. Solomon Thomas, one of those newer teammates, commenting in there, hey, proud of you. It's the support's there from the league. And like he said, it's not about him. He goes, I don't want people to have to make these videos that they're gay and that like, hey, I am. He doesn't want that. And it's a good stepping stone. And hats off to him for coming out with that.
And Steeler fans, I mean, obviously, we already know we're comfortable with it. We had a gay player for years. Big play Willie Gay. Loved him on the outside, making big plays, making touchdowns. Obviously not homosexual, but we still do not have any problems with gay athletes on our team. So moving forward to going from that story into an old player's story who used to be a great in Pittsburgh, the saga between Andy Reid and Le'Veon Bell moves on. Another chapter in the saga. Andy Reid comes off to social media and states he enjoyed his time with Bell and he's pulling for him. And Le'Veon Bell essentially said, bullshit. I mean, Le'Veon said he loved his time in Kansas City. He loved the players. He thought the locker room was one of the most tight-knit locker rooms in all of the NFL. And those are all great things to say, but he's like, that coach is crap. I think the coach probably just flat out and said, you're not the best and you need to start working hard, as opposed to just assuming everybody's going to bend over backward, because he might have been the reason that Andy Reid made sure not to re-sign him, to ensure that awesome locker room chemistry didn't start getting soured by a malcontent locker room problem that is Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah, Bell hasn't been the same since he left Pittsburgh. I think the man regrets leaving Pittsburgh, and now they got their number one back here. And yeah, you can't say that stuff about Andy Reid. I mean, Hall of Fame coach. He knows what he's doing. Le'Veon Bell does not know what he's doing. He hasn't made the right decisions ever since he left Pittsburgh. New York was a disaster. Never had a 100-yard rushing game there. He literally has not been the same running back. So he needs to shut his mouth and get back to what he was doing in Pittsburgh, working hard and figuring out what he's going to do with his career, because he might not be in the league much longer. He got his short little money span there from the Jets. He may not be on a roster. I would not be surprised if he's signed unless there's like a big injury on someone's team.
Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy to think one of the best backs, 4 years ago?
Yeah, and so diverse, too, with his pass catching. An excellent blocker on third down, too, when people blitz. That's one thing he never got a whole lot of credit for, but he was amazing about cutting down people, blitzing free on third down, too, as well.
Yeah, I was going back through pictures the other day, actually yesterday, and I was looking at Giants-Pittsburgh game that I was in. I'm looking at pictures. I'm like, oh, my God, Le'Veon Bell is out here lined up as a wide receiver. What running back does that? And it's just like, he's going to be out of the league if he keeps this nonsense up. Like, he's too much on the media. If you were like Patrick Mahomes, you want to be on social media, you want to run your mouth a little bit, go ahead.
Yeah.
You're about to be washed out of the league, my friend. It's going to pass you by. It's getting younger, and you're not really young anymore. So let's go. So, again, I liked Le'Veon Bell. I have no hard feelings how it was in Pittsburgh. He wanted his guaranteed money. I have nothing against him, but he's just running his mouth, and it's not a good look. Just take your lumps and, let's go.
Yeah. And Steeler Nation, keep chiming in. Let us know your questions. We're going to have a couple more topics here, and then we're going to start pulling for questions from Steeler Nation. Just so everybody knows, everybody always asks what I'm usually drinking. I'm drinking in my Pittsburgh Penguins koozie, which is my favorite koozie on the planet. But I've got my Hell or High Water from 21st Amendment Brewing Company. It is officially summer when Stryker cracks a Hell or High Water. That is my summer beer of choice. It's delicious, it's heavy, and it gets me going. So cheers to you, Steeler Nation. Thanks for being part of the show tonight. Cheers to you, Colton.
Cheers to my water today. I'll make sure I get the memo for next time. That's
my morning drink. We always drink during the show. I mean, that's
I'll get a drink of choice for next week. Next time. I got one for you.
Perfection. Now moving on. Bill Cowher received the Irish Funds Award, now named for Dan Rooney, and he was presented with what now called the Daniel Rooney Ambassador Award at the Ireland Funds Pittsburgh dinner on Monday evening at Heinz Field. And according to the release from the Ireland Funds organization, this award is presented to those who reflect Mr. Rooney's leadership, love of Pittsburgh, and contribution to the community. And the organization advocates for the support of Ireland via philanthropy with goals of peace, culture, and charity. So really interesting award, and congratulations for Bill Cowher being back in Pittsburgh, winning another award. His next one's going to be coming up here in Canton. So we're going to see him get his Hall of Fame award. And I think Rooney is presenting him, Dan Rooney to the current president. Yep. I believe is represented.
Yes, he is.
Yeah. Art Rooney too. Sorry, Art Rooney. Deuce.
Got to also check out his new book. Got to give Coach a little shout out on his new book. I actually just bought my father for Father's Day, and I know he's really excited to read it, and I will gladly be taking some of that action after that.
Nice. What's the title of the book? So we can.
Oh gosh, is it
Let me
Heart of Steel? Is that what it is?
let me look it up here quick.
I think it's Heart of Steel, something like that. But I've already seen some quotes. I've seen some quotes of it on Twitter, and I'm really excited.
Heart and Steel.
Heart and Steel.
Yep, Heart and Steel. And Steel. Anywhere you can buy books, it looks like it's all over Walmart, Amazon, everywhere. So Heart and Steel by Bill Cower. A little bit of good reading for this Hall of Fame coach coming up for his Hall of Fame ceremonies. I always love these kind of books too. So I'll definitely be checking that one out as well. The last thing I wanted to touch base on before we start getting to questions was Kevin Colbert on Draft Scout was ranked the best GM in the NFL. And that has to do with draft picks over time, making excellent trades, making excellent free agency moves, to always keeping this team competitive, and obviously winning 2 Super Bowls, going to a 3rd under his tenure. So congratulations to him getting some kudos that he actually deserves.
Yes, he actually does. I'm sitting here. I was the station I'm going to be working at here, 97.3, and he was talking about, because they hammer the GM here in Philly, and he was talking about, oh, name me a good GM, name me a guy that does well. I'm sitting here, I'm like, I don't want to be a homer, but Kevin Colbert, I can't really complain with any of his draft picks, what he does with the roster.
Yep.
So I kind of kept my mouth shut. I'm like, maybe over here you might want to check out the other team in Pennsylvania, another one that actually has a little more stability.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I'm so glad he's getting the credit he deserves. I know I think it was like 2 years ago, he was contemplating retirement. I know he's kind of been on a 1-year deal kind of thing. Just he doesn't want to fully commit because he doesn't know when he's going to step out. But I'm glad he's still here. Oh my gosh, he's so good at what he does. Oh my goodness. You know what's crazy? The division has been loaded with great GMs. Figure Baltimore there had oh my gosh, can't even think of the guy's name that just retired a few years.
Oh, that was Ozzie Smith.
Yes.
Yeah, or was it
Ozzie Newsome?
Ozzie Newsome. Damn, Ozzie Smith was the old baseball
player.
But
it doesn't matter. The first name
Ozzie, you're right. Yes.
first name helped me out, but figure Baltimore and Pittsburgh have probably had the best GMs in football. And what you see the stability, how good both these franchises are.
Yeah. So that's awesome.
One more thing I would like to add before we get into the questions.
Please.
Terrell Edmonds posted about contract year. Want to hear your thoughts on what you're expecting from Terrell this year? Like I said, we said earlier, he was fantastic last season for them. What are your thoughts on him having a contract year this year?
I am happy that he understands that this is his contract year. He's been a lot like Bud Dupree in his development, being a 1st-round draft pick and really not getting those splash plays that you're expecting out of a 1st-round draft pick. I mean, he was solid last year, very, very solid. I'm still waiting for his greatness. I'm still waiting for him to make great plays. And if this pushes him to be a greater player, I'm 100% for it. Because he's already came out and stated, he did not get that 5th-year option like his teammate right there next to him did, and Minkah Fitzpatrick for next year. But he also said in the same breath, that does not mean he's not going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler next year. So he obviously loves playing in Pittsburgh. We have his other brother here, usually on the roster or somewhere in practice squad with the running back, the other Edmonds. Yeah. So it's fun to have more than one family member on the same team to keep you around. But we'll have to see how he actually performs. I think if he performs, he's going to get paid. And then it just comes down to, are the Steelers going to be the one to try to pay him before he hits free agency? Or is he going to leave and try to get his money elsewhere? Or do the Steelers let him go and watch free agency set his value and then have him come back, which they've been doing here with some of these players here? Like, geez, case in point, Steven Nelson, still not signed to a team. So yeah, I'm excited by that tweet. To me, at least, I think it's a positive for him stating, I'm going to be working harder this year to try to be the best safety I can be. And that will turn into money next year, whether it's with the Steelers or with another team. So
yeah, you know. and I'm still thinking there is some talk with Malik Hooker, former USC man. And I'm thinking that might also be a play. Maybe that's why they didn't pick up the option. Maybe they had some talks with Malik Hooker. former Colt, who had one of the best plays 2 years back, that one-hand interception. But yeah, Malik Hooker also, had some talks. I think Dolphins, Dallas, and Pittsburgh were teams that Malik Hooker met with this year so far. I think he likes Pittsburgh, so that might be another reason why the Steelers didn't fully commit to Edmonds. Like you said, I think you hit the nail right on the head with the Bud Dupree thing. Dupree didn't show that he was that first-round talent that we were expecting out of Kentucky till that last 1 or 2 years on his contract. And I was like, I kind of can't give you this option because I've only seen it once.
Yeah. I remember when we 5th-year optioned Bud Dupree, and half of the forum on Steeler Nation went nuts. Like, they lost their minds. I'm like, are you kidding me? He had a great year. Yeah. And the 5th-year option is a way to keep him on the team for another year to see if they can get more value out of it. It's essentially the cheapest franchise tag you can have on a rookie. It's essentially getting another year, though they're playing at like essentially just under transition money, and you get him locked into another year. So it was a no-win. He had a monster year before he got hurt. Too bad he didn't stay healthy the whole year. Otherwise, that could have changed the trajectory of the whole team. Both linebackers dropping was probably equally as detrimental. But both happening about the same time in the year was really when we started losing football games too. So it's just
and I think and another thing before we get into the question, it just keeps popping up.
Sure.
Another position battle in camp. Edge rusher back up behind TJ and Highsmith. Roach looks really, really good out of Miami. Cassius Marsh, we kind of talked about that little thing. I think you can have a lot of potential out of Roach. 6th-round pick out of Miami, I believe. I think he can make a big splash here for them, kind of like Highsmith did last year. I think I don't know what your thoughts are on it. I think he could be really good for them.
Well, I think Roche, as it's like to be called, like Bobby Boucher, and I want to see him out making contact. Like that's a fine glass of water. That's a fine drink right there. Go out there. I just gonna make that tackle to make the place I can. So if he goes out like the water boy and starts dropping people, I'm all for Roche coming in being the swing outside linebacker. But the Steelers already showed they were interested in Carrington. And Carrington, the old Washington outside linebacker, and they made an offer to him before he ended up signing with the Eagles. So Steelers may still be looking to improve that slot in free agency, or to at least provide a little bit more. Is Cassius Marsh the backup answer next to Roche? I don't know. I mean, Marsh has shown flashes, but I don't know if he can carry the team, but I don't know if he's in the right system before in the past. We'll have to see. It's a question mark, and you're right, 100%. That swing backup outside linebacker 100% is a question mark.
Yeah, they got to look into it for sure. Just you saw last year how big of an impact it was losing Bud. Again, Highsmith held his own. He did great, but you got to be prepared.
Yeah, you do.
You got to be prepared.
And Steeler Nation, time for questions. Kenny, I already got to that question earlier. We talked about Brooks in the slot already at the top of the show. Go back and listen to the recast, and you'll catch the beginning of it. And we had a lot to say about that, but we're excited for him as well for possibly being the heir apparent to Mike Hilton, should I say. So now it's time for questions from Steeler Nation. We grab all of our questions first from the Steeler Nation forum. First question coming in from /Steel. Do we think training camp will be open to the public? We already kind of touched base on that. And yes, ultimately, if it's in Latrobe, I'd have to say, yes, it will be open to the public. But if it's in UPMC, I don't know if they have the ability at the UPMC practice facility there on South Side for it to be able to even be open to the public. So it may be determined on where they practice to being the determining factor on whether or not we can have spectators there watching them.
Yeah, and if they do it in Pittsburgh, I think they might have a few things where they're at Heinz Field where fans can get in. But I do agree with you on that. If it's at Latrobe, it's going to be open to the public.
And thank you very much, Robert. We've got our own resident Statler and Waldorf already rolled into one person. Re-listen. Hell, it's hard enough to listen to once. There you go. Thanks so much there, Cooley. I appreciate it. Next question from /Steel as well. Any news on Loudermilk? Can he come in and be a starter even for a game or two? Well, I think that might've been from an older one right there, but any news on Loudermilk? And right now, at least I haven't heard too much on Loudermilk other than there was some chatter during OTAs and some mini camps stating that they like his athleticism, and they've been comparing him to a guy that we drafted in the first round, who's our defensive team captain, in Cameron Hayward.
Yeah, he looked really good. Again, the Steelers had a great draft. All these guys have impacts from top to bottom of the draft. These guys, whether it's special teams or coming in for a snap or two, I trust this team, and I think they did a really good job drafting. We were excited on draft day. Again, nothing really, really splashy, but
just fitting the needs. And you're spot on. Like, we fit that need in running back with Najee Harris immediately. Pat Freiermuth immediately need at tight end. Kendrick Green immediately at center. And then we needed help and backups with a possible swing tackle, possible extra tackle. Dan Moore Jr., fourth off the board. Then you had Buddy Johnson. Looks like he's going to be a special teams player starting off, but giving us some ability here in the inside linebacker and some extra backup and extra depth at an inside linebacker. Isaiah Loudermilk was the surprise of the draft, in my opinion, moving back into the round for a spot where I thought we already had enough players, but he's obviously an upgrade, and somebody's going to have to be competing for a spot because Loudermilk's going to be trying to take one. Roche at the swing tackle, Trey Norwood in secondary, and then my guy, possible starter in the 7th round, Presley Harvin the third. So interesting to see what he becomes.
And again, the Steelers do it with free agency as well. They grab positions where they don't have to invest all the way in the draft where it's like, oh my gosh, we got to take a guard here first pick. You got to take a running back here. I keep forgetting the running back they brought in from the Chargers last season. Oh my gosh. I talked about him last time I was on. I'm forgetting his name.
The one the Steelers brought in?
Yeah, from the Chargers.
And that was in preseason, right?
Yes, it was.
He didn't get rostered, did he? Christ.
No, I'm talking about this year. No, they brought him in this year. I'm forgetting his name off the top.
Oh, on the team he's currently rostered. Yeah.
Yes, they just signed him. I forgot his name off the top of my head.
Christ.
It was good for the Chargers when the Eckler was hurt.
Yes, it was Ballage.
Yes, right? Kalen Ballage.
Kalen Ballage. Yes. See, now I'm mispronouncing names, and you can correct me. Kalen Ballage.
No, you correct me all day too.
I know, right? Yep. So Ballage, I mean, obviously he's a pretty diverse back in his own right. It's going to be interesting because that last running back spot looks like it's going to be between Snell, Ballage, and Jalen Samuels. So that's going to be a real interesting battle there in camp.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of crazy how far Jalen's fallen off a cliff. I thought Jalen's going to be more involved in this offense. Look back, what was it, 2 years ago when they had that halfback toss against who the heck did they dominate with that with him? And he's kind of been irrelevant kind of since. He hasn't been the same running back. I don't understand why. And
yeah, I agree. But Zonenberg's got a question. Is Latrobe even a done deal yet? No, it's not done yet. We're hoping that that it ends up being at St. Vincent because that means we're going to have fans and that means we're going to have a lot of them. So hoping for it. We got questions over here on YouTube as well. Now I'm going to go with Robert C. Mr. Cooley Man. I actually really do like this question. And not necessarily, I mean, even though I might not like the person asking it, but he's saying not NFL, but what do we think about the NCAA going to a 12-game playoff? It's not official yet, but it looks to be close. And I'll start with you on this one, Colton.
Money talks. Why'd the NFL add a team? Money is the only reason why. It gets more money for the schools. It gets more teams involved. The NCAA can make some more money on Fox, CBS, ESPN bidding for these games. It's all it is. And it shuts the people up there like, oh, what about this team that was getting hot at the end of the season? What about this team that had a bad loss early on? So,
right. And then you're out of it.
So I think
unless you're in the SEC, and then you still getting 2-3 teams in the 14 playoff anyway. So my thing about this, and here's my personal opinion on it, and I'm like, finally, the NCAA Division I football program has an actual playoff plan because 4 teams, two teams voting on who wins was bullshit. Absolute bullshit. And I couldn't stand it. As a Penn State fan, I stopped pretty much watching all of college football in 94 when they decided to give the national championship not to the undefeated Nittany Lions that had way more talent on that team, but ended up giving it to Nebraska and the girlfriend beater quarterback down there in Nebraska for that year. And that stuck in my craw hard because I think the next 2 years they gave co-championships to the next couple teams. And it's like Penn State deserved a championship that year. And it hurt. It hurt a lot as a huge college football fan at that time. But now since I've been out of it, watching the 2-game, watching the 4-game, BCS, it's not even a championship. It's called a BCS. It's a bowl championship series. So you're playing for a bowl championship, not for the NCAA championship. So this will actually be an NCAA championship. You're going to have more than 2 to 3 conferences being represented. I am a full proponent of the top 10 for both polls, AP, coaches poll. As long as the top 10 is represented, I think that is an adequate baseline for having the right teams play in a playoff system to determine who the national championship is. And it will be the first time since 1993 that Stryker here will recognize an NCAA national champion.
And it shuts up the fact that UCF would have gotten the doors blown off. Coastal Carolina would have gotten their brakes kicked in.
Right.
It shuts that conversation up because you're in it now, folks. See what you got, and you can prove it. You can hang with the big boys. And it also helps those schools too. So figure UCF can stay afloat like, hey, we're getting actual TV time here and we're getting our respect.
Yep.
Same thing with Coastal Carolina, how good they were last season. Same thing with BYU. I think it's as good all around. And you always have those question marks. Oh my gosh, that 5 team should have gotten in over the 4, yada, yada, yada. They're all in. Please be quiet. See who deserves to get in.
Yeah. And Brian Brown over here on YouTube as well, chiming in. Do I think Jalen Samuels can make the roster? And I do. I honestly do think Jalen Samuels can make this roster. And that is because Matt Canada is a better planner and a better schemer. And Jalen Samuels has already shown he's pretty decent at blocking on third down. Probably currently our best blocking back for third down. He's probably our best pass catcher out of the backfield, being essentially a slot receiver and a scat back more than an actual running back. Steelers made him into a running back. He wasn't a running back really in college, close to like 300 catches or something in college. So this guy knows how to catch the ball. So yes, I think with a more open offense and a lot of different scheming to utilize his skills, he's got a shot and he's got more diversity in his ability than, say, Benny Snell. And, you know, Kalen Ballage also seems to be a little bit more versatile than Benny Snell. So right now, to me, if I had to pick on the odd man being out, it might be Snell. And that's a guy that a lot of Steeler Nation loves. And I know you love Snell too, Colton.
Yeah, I love me some Benny Snell football, right. Kentucky boy. I just don't. Yeah, I hear you. It's going to be really interesting. I just think the way Samuels has kind of fallen off a cliff here the past year and a half. Like I said, going back when they had that like halfback toss and he was killing it. He has not really been involved in the offense. It's like, where the heck is Jalen Samuels at here? Again, Matt Canada might be a little bit of a different guy, the more explosive offense kind of thing where he can use the versatility of Jalen Samuels. Mm-hmm. And if Benny Snell doesn't get the passing game involved, because nowadays you got to catch the ball out of the backfield. You have to. I think it's going to play a factor if he wants to make this roster. So, and I love Benny Snell, but he's got to catch the ball, like you said.
Right. And Kenneth Beamer coming in with a question in all caps. TJ will break the record for sacks this year. Yes or no? I think the only way TJ Watt has a chance of winning the Defensive Player of the Year is if he breaks the NFL record for sacks this season. I'd love to see him put up 30. I mean, that would just be all. I can still see him put up 30 sacks and still lose out to Aaron Darnold just because Darnold gets blocked a lot. But
yeah, I'm sorry. I was messaging you left and right after they gave
dude.
Donald the
Right.
Defensive Player of the Year, and I'm not going to go on a rant because I could literally go on for 5 minutes. But
I mean, he's a Pitt guy. I can't hate on him too
much.
So.
Absolutely not. He's very, very good at football.
he is. But
I'm
honestly,
not trying to be stupid, but oh my gosh, he led every
last 2
category.
years, I mean, the year before I could kind of see, it was
yes,
more of a neck and neck. But this past year, no freaking way does.
And he missed a game.
Exactly.
And he missed a game. Yep. Like, come on.
Oh, yeah. And he still had way better stats than anyone else.
He led every major category but one to Donald.
Right.
It's not he's very good. He's going to get paid blank checks or whatever you want to put on it. And I'm glad he's on my team.
So how many sacks do you see Watt having this year? What if you put up a number on it, what would your number be? Now having 17 games instead of 16.
Go 18 and a half.
Okay.
That's 18 and a half, 19. Depending how much a step Highsmith takes, we saw how good he was at the end of last year. He's all going to be better. And if he's better, that means TJ gets more looks, especially with the line up front with Cam and Tyson. Hopefully Tyson stays a little more healthy this season. You know how good he is in the pass rush. And clearly Stephon too with 10 last year. So if those guys all stay healthy up front, I think TJ can easily get 18 or 19 because you want to double TJ? Let Tua get 10-plus sacks again this season. Right. Let Cam Hayward get 6 or 7.
Right.
And let Highsmith get double digits. So good luck to you. Double TJ, it's going to bite you somewhere else. So, especially when the division kind of got worse on the offensive line. Cincinnati didn't want to touch it. Baltimore traded one of their best tackles.
Right.
So, and Cleveland clearly still has one of the best lines in football. But
yes, agreed. Yep.
It's opportunities there.
And what has TJ Watt done his entire career but getting more sacks than the year before? 7 sacks as a rookie, 13 as a sophomore, 14 and a half 2 years ago, 15 last year, leading the league with 15 sacks. I think I'm with you. I think he's going to be close to 20. I could honestly see him hit 20 just because of the fire that's lit under his ass, especially in the Watt household, where his brother is still giving him crap about the fact that he's got 3 DPOIs to TJ should have been 2. So I see that really lighting a fire because that's how the Watt family is. They push themselves to be better than they were the year before because they take pride in it and they want to be the best that they can be in their family, even more so than the rest of the league. And that's a high bar. Just being a Watt is a high bar.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I've gotten into this discussion multiple times. You taking the Bosas or the Watts?
Right.
What? I know Nick Bosa looks very, very good, and Joey's very good.
Yes.
I know what I got from the Watts. I've seen it consistently. They're on the field. JJ, as of late, hasn't really been on the field because of the injury.
Yeah, he's been injured, yeah.
He's got 3 MVPs, Defensive Player of the Years,
Right.
And the Bosa's got none. And TJ should have gotten 1 or 2. So I'm clearly taking the Watts. They're both explosive. And I can't wait to see JJ paired up with Chandler Jones out there in Arizona.
Oh, I know. And last question that I see right here coming from Brian Brown. Do I think Ray McLeod will have any returns for a touchdown this year on special teams? Colton, what are your thoughts?
I'm going to give him 1. I think he's got the explosiveness. After that muff punt, that was the Ravens game, I believe. Yeah. He fell off a cliff after that. He lost his mojo, but before that, I was waiting. It was like, oh my gosh, we got to return to that.
Yeah. It was electric watching him return up until that point. I'm with
you. What are your thoughts before I get your point on that? I'm seeing some comments on him getting some shots in the slot. I don't understand it. I get he's explosive at the catch. We have Deontay Johnson for that. I don't understand taking a guy like Claypool or Juju or, for that matter, James Washington off the field for Ray. Before I get into your thoughts on that.
It comes down to slot positioning and positioning across the offensive line. For your receivers, we have 3 positions that we utilize for receivers. We got the X, we have the Y, which is the slot, and we have the Z. The X receiver is the guy that's getting all the catches. That's always been the Hines Ward. It's now in Antonio Brown. It's now DJ. It's Deontay Johnson. He plays the X. You got Juju plays the slot. He's been playing big slot for the last couple of years. And we've had so many players, like we keep drafting Z players, and they're always the taller, faster guys that stretch the field a little bit more. And that's your James Washingtons. That's your Claypools. Those guys play the Z. So At slot, yes, Ray is really, he's the only slot we have. I think the backup at the X right now would either be Juju or Washington. Ray, I don't think really can transition to being an X, but his quickness and being an inside player lends itself to being a slot player. So if you're utilizing those skills and mismatches when you go 4 wide or even 3 wide, you might have him just darting laterally across the field faster than just about anybody else. Though, I can't really discount Claypool being able to throw him and run him left to right as well. But we always end up
try to have fun tackling him.
Yeah, but Juju's the guy that's normally our slot guy. So it's not like Ray's taking tackles. It would just come down to certain personnel moves. If for me, it's more like I'd want to work Ray in for like a slot screen or a quick end around, jet sweep, something like that. Like that, those aspects I think would be best suited for Ray's skill set, as well as like running east-west quickly, hopefully with a linebacker on him that he's beating him to that sideline and he can turn up and rip up a play. So that's what that's what Ray is on this team. And, he essentially is doing that on special teams as well. And, like we said too, like he was absolutely electric every time he got that football last year. Like I was on the edge of my seat expecting something big, and he was ripping off some big runs and making some people miss until that miss. And then after that miss, he became like Hank Poteet. If any of those older Steeler fans know, like Hank Poteet caught the ball and just like went like this a couple times and like didn't move anywhere and just got tackled. And it looked a lot like that. But, I'm hoping he does get his mojo back, like you alluded to, Colton. I love that usage of that term, and being able to come here, start fresh again this year, because he is electric. And when he's got his confidence, this guy can make plays. So I'd love to see him score a touchdown, and I hope he scores multiple touchdowns on special teams, because that would make this team even more difficult to game plan for, should we finally get that returner that's helping us to shorten that field on offense for Ben and company. And last question or last statement here with Kenneth states that Juju wants to play outside this year. I hear you, Kenneth, but he's the slot. I mean, we got so many play. You got to think about it. You can't really put DJ in the slot. I don't think he's durable enough to play the slot. You can't put Washington in the slot because he's not fast enough to play the slot. You can put Claypool in the slot, but I don't think he's shifty enough to play in the slot. I prefer him to use that speed on the outside.
I could see DJ. That's the only thing I agree with you. It's DJ. It's the only answer you could possibly put in the slot.
And it's like that. I mean, if you can swap, maybe like the best thing possibly would be isolate Juju and DJ on one side. If you don't like what you're doing, switch them at the line of scrimmage and run the patterns then off of the other sides. And that's what we're going to see out of Matt Canada. So it may be a moot point, the way that we're going to be moving around players pre-snap to try to get a good pre-snap read for Ben in this Matt Canada offense, to see who is going to be open in the open read right off the snap, as opposed to just lining up and running plays like we had to all last year where everybody knew where we were going. But
what else? I also think Juju just wants to get down the field more. Juju, if you look at all of his routes last season, he was 2 yards off the ball. So I think he wants to get down the field more. I think that's maybe why he wants to play outside, so he can get down the field more and be more explosive. So in the slot, he can be just as scary down the field in the slot. So I think Canada will get some plays down the field for him, because he can go out and make some catches, and he's got the breakaway speed. We've seen that these past, 4 years since he's been in Pittsburgh. He's got the speed to break off some guys. So I think that's just what it is. You can clearly, he's at Hines Ward getting that tough 3 or 4 yards you need on a third down and 4 or 5, but get him down the field a little bit more, please. My gosh.
You hit the nail on the head, man, because he was only averaging 8.6 yards a catch last season, way down from his double-digit averages, 15.8, 12.8, 13.1. I mean, last year was an interesting bird, and to get close to 100 catches and not even be near 100 yards, 97 catches, 831 yards. I mean, obviously he was making plays too. And there was a lot of plays where he was way short of those sticks, but he made the athletic plays and made people miss and extended for that first down. Every single yard he got last season, he freaking earned. So,
I love Juju last year, man. Oh,
I know, man.
Hines Ward, he got those tough yards you needed to move the sticks.
He did all the dirty work last year.
She did
all the dirty work. So yeah, I'm expecting him to have a much better time this year. Definitely having a running game will help out all of the receivers and all their stats, and all of their yards per catch is going to go up.
It's going to make the offense so much better instead of a freaking quick 2-yard, a quick behind the line, try to get a yard thing with the Juju run.
Yeah.
I got a legit back. Yeah, here you go, Najee. Get me a yard. And he's going to.
Hell, get me 3 on 3rd and 3 now.
Seriously, that's what
get me 4 on 3rd and 4 now. Yeah.
You can have him back there or have him in shotgun with Ben, and Ben see something, spread everyone out. Go Najee, go, baby.
Yeah. Or the
I'm
dig
excited
off
for this
offense. Boop, take it off. And now he's making those one-handed catches in practice and stuff too, man. And he loves to hurdle people, so I can't wait to see that on an NFL field. I really can't. I'm getting more and more excited to see him.
I can't wait to see him on. So excited to have it back like this.
Well. So next, Brian is asking our next show, and I'll talk about it. Brian, we'll be back on next week. Usually I'm on Tuesdays or Wednesdays. But yeah, usually I try to make it every Tuesday because that's usually when I'm on every year or every time during the year, just to give a nice wrap up at the end of the each week, whether it's a Sunday game or a Monday game. But yeah, we try to do Tuesdays. I got kind of screwed up with work yesterday, and I passed out. I literally passed out at 6:00, didn't wake up till 12:30. So I missed my window yesterday for the show, and that's why we're doing it today. I took a nap right before the show today too, by the way. but I set my alarm. I set my alarm tonight, and that's why I'm here. But this week though, Steeler Nation, go check out the Yinsers on Friday at 9:30. They're going to be right here on the YouTube channel. Same one right here, youtube.com/Steeler Nation. And they are going to be having our newest wide receiver, Isaiah McCoy, the undrafted rookie free agent out of Kent State, who's rostered now. And they're going to talk to him about his path, what it is to be a receiver, and those girls are going to have a great time grilling him on the state of Pittsburgh and the Pittsburgh Steelers and the state of the nation. So looking forward to that interview on Friday night. And if you miss it, make sure to watch the replay, of course, in the podcast. Check that out on the website at SteelerNation.com. Colton, great having you on the show again, my brother.
It's an honor to be on with the man, G.Stryker, baby. Love talking Steelers football with you.
And tell Steeler Nation, how can we follow you on Steeler Nation before you start writing your articles here for Steeler Nation?
You can find my personal account at The Real Sea Wagon on Twitter, or my podcast page at @foul_podcast. Getting that thing going really soon again. Supposed to be getting Michael Burton on fullback from the Saints coming on hopefully really soon here. But glad to be part of Steeler Nation now.
And the name of that podcast one more time is a little quick.
Personal Foul Podcast. You can find it on Twitter at @foul_podcast.
Perfect. Thank you so much, my friend. I know I'll be seeing you again soon. And, like I said, welcome to the team.
I'm glad to be here, man. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So Steeler Nation, make sure you come over to SteelerNation.com and read our articles. Tweet us at Steeler Nation. Instagram us at SteelerNation.com. Follow the Steeler Nation podcast on Twitter at _SN podcast. Follow your host, myself, Steeler Nation Stryker, on Twitter and Instagram at SN Stryker. Stryker spelled with a Y. Thanks for joining us for the SteelerNation.com podcast, sponsored by Total Sports Enterprises. I'm your host, G.Stryker, with Colton Gesser, rooting along with you, as always. Go